The moment the three bikers rolled up to the old roadside diner, they weren't expecting anything unusual. They came for coffee, fuel, and maybe to stretch their legs after a long ride. But the second the glass door swung open, all three of them froze, because the young black waitress who stepped forward to greet them was limping so badly she had to grip the counter for support. "Welcome. Table for 3. She asked, her voice warm but strained, like she was trying to hide pain that refused to stay hidden. Shade, the tallest of the three, with braids hanging under his helmet, caught the way she winced the moment she put weight on her left foot. Reaper and Switchblade noticed too. They exchanged a quick look. This wasn't normal, and the diner was too quiet, too tense. There were customers inside, but none of them were eating. A couple of old men sipped their coffee with their heads down. A mother and her son sat stiffly, whispering to each other, and behind the counter, a large man with a thick beard kept glancing at the waitress like she was some kind of property. Shade nodded toward an empty booth. "Yeah, table for 3. The waitress smiled politely as she led them, but the limp was impossible to ignore now. Every step looked like fire shooting up her leg, and every time she flinched, the bearded man behind the counter stiffened, like he was ready to bark at her. The bikers sat. She pulled out her notepad. "What can I get y'all?" Shade didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on her leg. "Ma'am, you okay?" Her smile didn't even flicker. It was forced, like a mask she'd worn for years. "I'm fine. What drink can I start you with?" Switchblade frowned. "You're not fine. You can barely stand." Behind her, the bearded man slammed something on the counter. The sound echoed through the diner. The waitress stiffened like she'd been struck. "I said I'm fine." She whispered under her breath, "Please, don't say anything." Shade leaned forward. His voice dropped. "If somebody hurt you." "I said I'm fine." Her eyes darted to the counter again. Fear flickered through them. Right then, the bikers knew. Someone in the diner had done this, and the waitress was terrified of speaking. She took their order as fast as she could, then limped away. They watched her disappear into the kitchen, heart twisting with every step she struggled to take. Reaper folded his arms. "This place stinks of fear." Switchblade nodded, "And that guy behind the counter, he's watching her like he owns her." Shade didn't answer. He was still staring at the door she vanished behind, jaw tight, mind racing. Something about her limp didn't look like an accident. It looked recent, fresh, violent. Minutes later, she returned with their drinks. Her hands were shaking so much the cups rattled on the tray. "Sorry," she whispered. She wasn't clumsy, she was scared. Shade finally asked quietly, "Did someone do this to you?" She didn't even lift her head. "Please, please don't, it'll get worse." And just like that, she hurried away again. Reaper exhaled slowly, so she's being threatened. Switchblade clenched his jaw. Forget threatened, that limp. Someone put their hands on her. The bearded man behind the counter raised his voice suddenly. "Girl, table 6 has been waiting 15 minutes. Move." She flinched and limped faster. Shade's fist tightened. Reaper's knuckles went white. Switchblade looked ready to break something, but they didn't move. Not yet. They needed to understand what was going on fully, not act on instinct alone. Then things shifted. A man from another table stood up. "Excuse me," he said to the bearded man. "She's obviously hurt. Maybe let her sit down." The bearded man snarled. "You don't tell me how to run my diner." The man sat back down quickly, fear swallowing whatever courage he had a moment earlier. The entire diner went silent. Shade leaned forward, voice low. "I'm going to ask again. Are we stepping in?" Reaper smirked slightly. "Brother, you know the answer." Switchblade cracked his neck. "I've been waiting." But Shade held up a hand. "Not yet. Not until we know exactly what we're dealing with. Last thing I want is for us to jump and make her situation worse. Because sometimes intervening without full knowledge could cause more harm." He kept observing. Minutes later, the kitchen doors swung open and the waitress carried out plates. Heavy plates, balancing them with both hands despite the pain shooting through her leg. She limped across the room, teeth clenched. She passed their table again. Shade caught her gently by the forearm. "Look at me." She froze slowly. She lifted her eyes. There was exhaustion in them. Fear, but also something else. Something like humiliation. Like this was far from the first time someone treated her like this. "You're injured," Shade said softly. "Who hurt you?" Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. The bearded man's voice boomed again. "Girl, stop talking and work." And in her eyes something broke. She pulled away from Shade and hurried off. Reaper leaned in. "Okay, that's enough for me. We're doing something." Switchblade nodded. "Absolutely." Shade took a deep breath. "Give me a minute." He stood up slowly and walked toward the front counter. The bearded man looked up. "I help you?" Shade stared at him for a long moment. That waitress limping around. What happened? The man's face hardened instantly. "Not your business. When someone's hurt, it becomes my business." The man leaned forward. "You're in my diner. You follow my rules." Shade didn't blink. "What rule is that?" "No compassion allowed." The bearded man's jaw clenched. "Listen to me. That girl works for me. What happens here stays here. Understand?" Shade didn't move, so something did happen. The man's face reddened. "I told her not to run her mouth to strangers. She's clumsy, and that's the end of it." Shade raised an eyebrow. "She limps like she was kicked." The man froze for a fraction of a second, then his eyes narrowed. "You accusing me of something, biker?" Shade said nothing. He didn't have to. The silence said it all. Behind Shade, Reaper and Switchblade stood up. The diner went dead silent again. The bearded man smirked. Not because he wasn't scared, but because he thought he had the upper hand. "You boys want food or a problem?" Shade smiled coldly. "Brother, I don't think you understand how close you are to losing this diner." The man leaned in. "And I don't think you understand how close you are to getting banned from every diner in this county." Shade chuckled. "You think we care about diners?" The man stepped back, suddenly uneasy. Shade stepped forward. What happened to her leg? Before the man could respond, someone behind Shade whispered, trembling. She didn't fall. It was the elderly woman from table 2. Her fingers trembled around her coffee cup. I saw him kick her. Suddenly, all the secrets in the room were on the table. The bearded man snapped. "Mind your business, Agnes." The old lady shivered and lowered her head. Shade turned slowly. "You kicked her." The man growled. "She kept messing up orders. I teach discipline here. She's my employee. I handle her how I see fit." Shade stopped breathing for half a second. Reaper's entire expression changed. Switchblade let out a single sharp laugh, the kind someone gives right before everything goes bad. Shade turned back fully, one last time. "Did you put your hands, or feet, on that girl?" The man leaned back behind the counter, gripping the edge, trying to look bigger than he was. "I did what I had to do." Shade's eyes darkened. "Good. I needed to hear you say it, because now there was no more doubt. No more holding back, no more waiting." The kitchen door swung open again, and the waitress appeared holding another plate. When she saw the tension, she froze like a scared rabbit. "What's happening?" she whispered. Shade turned to her gently. "You don't have to work here another second." The bearded man shouted, "Girl, you take one more step and you're fired." Reaper shouted back, "If you say one more word to her, you're gonna be lying on the floor." The man went pale for the first time. Switchblade stepped forward. "You've been abusing her in front of this whole diner. That ends today." Shade walked to the waitress. "What's your name?" She hesitated, whispered, "Maya." Shade nodded. "Maya, we got you. No one here is laying another finger on you." Her eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth, shaking. The bearded man came from behind the counter. Shade stepped in front of Meyer instantly. Reaper moved to the side like a shadow. Switchblade cracked his knuckles. The man stopped dead. "You bikers think you're heroes." He spat. Shade laughed under his breath. "Heroes, no, we're worse. Heroes follow rules." The man looked around the restaurant for support, but not a single soul would look at him, not one. Everyone in the diner had seen the truth. Shade stared him down. "You hurt her, and you're going to answer for it." The man swallowed. "This is my place. You can't try me." Before anything else could happen, Maya whispered, voice trembling, "She's not the only one he's hurt." The diner gasped. Shade turned to her slowly. "Maya, what do you mean?" Her lips trembled. "I'm not the first waitress he's done this to." The others quit. He told me if I left, he'd make sure no one in town hired me. Shade closed his eyes. This wasn't just one incident. This was a pattern. A cycle, and today it ended. Reaper leaned close to Shade. Brother, say the word. Switchblade smirked. We're ready. Shade looked at Maya. You want out. Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. Shade turned back to the owner. His voice dropped into something darker, colder, and quieter than the room had ever heard. Then she's done here, and so are you. The bearded man took one step back, because he could feel it now. He wasn't in control anymore, and the bikers weren't leaving without justice. The owner's breath hitched as the entire diner watched him shrink behind his own counter. Shade stood in front of Maya like a steel wall, unmoving, unbothered by the man's blustering. The air in the diner felt thick now, like every person sitting inside was waiting for something they'd been too scared to hope for. Justice? What are you gonna do? The owner stammered, his voice cracking for the first time. This is my diner. I make the rules. Shade took one step forward. Your rules end today. The man's eyes darted around the room, searching for help from people he'd bullied for years. But nobody moved. Not the elderly woman, not the mother with her kid, not the teenage busboy leaning against the wall, bruises along his jawline like he'd been hit before too. Shade tilted his head. Seems like no one here agrees with you. Reaper crossed his arms, tattoos shifting with the movement. Funny how big men like you get real small when someone your own size walks in. Switchblade grinned. Usually they only pick on people who can't fight back. The owner's hands trembled. You bikers don't know what she did. She's lazy. She talks back. Maya finally spoke, her voice trembling yet stronger than before. I told you my leg was injured. You told me to walk it off, and when I couldn't move fast enough, you kicked me. The room gasped again. Shade's eyes turned ice. Cold. That true? The owner didn't deny it this time. He just froze, like a man already drowning. Shade stepped closer until they were a foot apart. So tell me something. When exactly did you get the idea that abusing a woman half your size made you a man? The owner swallowed hard. Why? You can't threaten me. I'll call the sheriff. Reaper slid his phone out. Good. Want me to dial him for you? The man blinked. What? Shade smirked. Let me guess. Sheriff's your cousin, your buddy, your drinking partner. Someone who looks the other way whenever you rough up your employees. The owner stiffened. He won't do a thing to me. Switchblade took a slow step forward, voice calm. You sure about that? Maya hesitated, then whispered, Sheriff Grayson. He's his uncle. Shade nodded. Makes sense. Abusing workers and hiding behind family connections. Classic small town tyrant behavior. Reaper cracked his neck. So we're dealing with a little empire of bullies. And we're about to dismantle it. Shade added. The owner puffed out his chest like he still had control. You bikers think you scare me. Sheriff finds out you're harassing me. He'll haul you in. Shade chuckled. Who said anything about harassment? Then something shifted, a subtle movement. The teenage busboy stepped forward. Maya's telling the truth. He said quietly, he kicked her, and last month he threw a plate at Lisa. She quit cause she got a concussion. The diner murmured. The owner spun on the boy. You lying little. Shade intercepted instantly. I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you. The boy's voice shook, but he kept going. He hits employees all the time, yells at customers. My mom begged me to quit, but we needed the money. Shade nodded slowly. Thank you for speaking up. The boy swallowed hard, eyes glistening. Just make sure he can't hurt anyone else. We will. Reaper said, promise. The owner was visibly panicking now, sweat rolling down his temples. You can't prove anything. No one's gonna stand with you. I saw it too. Everyone turned. It was the quiet mother sitting with her young son. She raised her hand timidly. He shoved her into a table last week. I didn't say anything because I didn't want him yelling at my boy. Her son squeezed her hand, whispering, It's okay, Mom. Shade stepped back, looking around at the diner patrons. Anyone else got something to say? A few hands rose, then more. until almost everyone in the diner was pointing at the owner. The man's face collapsed. Maya covered her mouth, tears streaming as she realized she wasn't alone. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't imagining the pain or the abuse. Everyone saw it. Everyone felt it. Shade turned back to her gently. "You ready for this to end?" Maya nodded. "Please." Reaper stepped forward and reached across the counter. "Let's start with something simple." Before the owner could react, Reaper grabbed the laminated sign titled Employee Rules. Off the wall, pages filled with impossible demands, penalties for mistakes, and rules that only an abuser would write. He snapped it in half. The owner lunged to stop him. Shade caught the man by the collar with one hand. "You touch him," Shade warned, "and I promise you won't get back up." The owner froze. Reaper calmly tossed the broken rules to the floor and stepped on them. Switchblade moved around the counter and unplugged the security camera. These only ever pointed at the staff, not the customers. That tells me everything. The owner tried to regain some courage. "When the sheriff gets here, he won't do a thing." The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. A tall, clean-cut black man in a tailored jacket stepped inside. He looked like authority poured into human form, calm, sharp, and impossible to intimidate. Maya gasped. "Mr. Devereaux." Shade blinked. The entire diner fell silent. The owner sputtered, "WH, what are you doing here?" The man pulled out a badge, a state investigator's badge. The diner erupted in whispers. Shade stepped back slightly, allowing him room. Mr. Devereaux spoke calmly, his voice cutting through the room like a knife. "We've been investigating reports of worker abuse in this county for 3 months. This diner kept coming up." The owner's knees nearly buckled. "What? No, my nephew, the sheriff," he said. Mr. Devereaux's expression didn't shift an inch. "Your nephew is currently being questioned by my team." The room went dead silent. "You're lying." The owner whispered, pale. Mr. Devereaux didn't blink. "No, you made one mistake. Abusing people loud enough for the world to hear. They talked. We listened." He turned to Maya. "And I came personally because Maya here filed a complaint 2 weeks ago." Maya's eyes widened. "But they said no one would believe me." Mr. Devereaux smiled softly. "Maya, your report was the most detailed, courageous testimony we received. You may have saved dozens of workers in this county." Shade's jaw clenched with pride. Reaper exhaled. "Well, damn." Switchblade nodded. "She's the strongest person in this room." The owner backed into a table. No, this isn't happening. I didn't. She's lying. They're lying." Mr. Devereaux lifted a folder and tossed it onto a table. Inside were photos, statements, timestamps, evidence. "This," Mr. Devereaux said, "is everything we need to shut you down." The owner's voice cracked. "Shut me, you can't. This is my life." Shade stepped in front of him, voice low. "Should have thought about that before you made her miserable." The owner trembled. "I didn't mean," Shade cut him off. "You did." Reaper leaned on a chair, "and you'll pay for it." Switchblade folded his arms. "Karma always arrives. Today, she's riding a Harley." The owner broke. His legs gave out. He fell onto a chair, shaking, defeated for the first time. Mr. Devereaux turned to Maya. "You're safe now, completely, and you'll be compensated for every hour you were forced to work off the clock. Every injury, every violation." Maya sobbed into her hands. Shade placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Told you we got you." She looked up at him, eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you, all of you." Reaper tapped his chest. "We just showed up. You're the one who stood up." Switchblade nodded. "You're the reason this place is going down." Mr. Devereaux smiled. "And one more thing. Maya, someone forwarded your application to the district cafe downtown. They want to hire you, full-time, better pay, better hours." Maya gasped. I didn't think I'd ever get another job." "You deserve better," Shade said. "Way better," Reaper grinned. "You're tougher than this whole diner." Switchblade chuckled. "And you got us on your side now." The owner tried one last time. "Maya, please, don't do this. I'll lose everything." Maya wiped her tears, stood straight, and said with a steady voice, "You should have thought about that before you kicked me." The diner erupted in applause. Shade, Reaper, and Switchblade walked Maya outside into the sunlight. She breathed the fresh air like she hadn't tasted freedom in years. "You ever need help again?" Shade said softly, "You call us, anytime." She nodded, smiling, "I will." Then Shade put on his helmet and looked back at the diner where Mr. Devereaux was leading officers in to shut things down. Justice, real justice. As the three bikers mounted their Harleys, engines rumbling like thunder, Maya waved at them with renewed strength. Shade smiled under his helmet. "Let's ride." Maya stood in the warm sunlight long after the bikers rode away, watching their tail. Lights shrink into the horizon like guardians returning to whatever world heroes disappear into after saving someone. Her hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from the weight suddenly removed from her shoulders. For the first time in years, she could breathe. Inside the diner, the last remnants of the old owner's rule were being dismantled. Deputies, not from this county, continued documenting violations, interviewing witnesses, and walking through the kitchen like archaeologists uncovering a ruin of human cruelty. Customers left in small groups, whispering among themselves, promising Maya they would testify if needed. She had never felt so seen, but the moment that stuck with her was when the teenager who had spoken up earlier ran out to her, breathless. "Maya," she turned, "Yeah." He stopped in front of her, cheeks flushed. I just wanted to say thank you. If you hadn't spoken up first, none of us would have dared." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking even when you're shaking." The boy nodded, blinking back tears. "You think they'll close it forever? I don't know," Maya said softly, "but I know you won't have to come back here." He exhaled in relief. Moments later, Mr. Devereaux stepped out, crisp as ever, his badge catching sunlight. "Maya, mind coming with me for a moment?" Her stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" He smiled. "Not at all, quite the opposite." She followed him toward a black SUV parked by the curb. He opened the back door and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This," he said, handing it to her, "is the state's compensation package for confirmed victims of workplace abuse under Section 19B. Maya frowned. "What does that mean?" "Open it." Hands trembling, she tore it open. Her eyes widened. It wasn't just a check. It was multiple checks. 3 years' worth of unpaid overtime, damages for physical injury, workers' rights violations, interest, and something else. Something that made her breath hitch. A scholarship notice for the state hospitality training program. She whispered, I applied to this a year ago. They rejected me." Mr. Devereaux's smile softened. "They didn't reject you. Your former boss intercepted the acceptance letter. He didn't want you leaving." Maya's knees buckled. She steadied herself on the SUV. "He stopped me from getting out. For a long time, but now." Mr. Devereaux placed a hand over the envelope. "Now you have a future again." Maya broke into quiet sobs, not sadness, but overwhelming release. Mr. Devereaux waited patiently as she cried, letting her shoulders shake until her body finally relaxed. "When do classes start?" she asked at last. "Next month." She nodded, holding the envelope like it was something sacred. Then she asked what had been gnawing at her since she met him. "Why'd you come personally? Someone like you must have dozens of investigations." He hesitated, then said quietly, "Someone forwarded me your file, said you deserved a chance." "Who?" He smiled. "A friend." Before she could ask more, an officer called him back inside. Maya sat on the curb, staring at the envelope, letting reality sink into her bones. Her life was changing, and she wasn't alone. Miles down the highway, Shade finally slowed his Harley, pulling it toward a scenic overlook surrounded by tall pines. Reaper and Switchblade followed, their engines cutting into silence. Switchblade hopped off his bike. "Man, that felt good." Reaper cracked his knuckles. "You see the look on that guy's face when the badge came out? Priceless." Shade didn't answer immediately. He stood with his helmet tucked under his arm, staring into the forest. Something in him was still replaying the image of Maya limping, trying to hide her pain. "You're thinking too hard," Reaper said, leaning beside him. Shade exhaled, "Just. Makes me wonder how many like her we never see." Switchblade nodded. "Yeah, but today wasn't one of those days. Today we did something." Shade finally allowed a small smile. "Yeah, we did." but there was something else, a feeling in his bones, a tug. "Y'all mind giving me a minute?" he asked. Reaper raised a brow. "You good? Yeah, just a thought I need to follow." Switchblade shrugged. "We'll be down the road, meet you there." The two bikers climbed back onto their Harleys and took off, leaving Shade alone with the quiet hum of the forest. He took a slow breath, then climbed back onto his bike. He wasn't done. Back in town, Maya stepped away from the diner after giving her final statement. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The place that had held her hostage for years was no longer something to fear. Her future was in her hands. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Maya." Her heart stopped. The voice was deep, familiar somehow. "This is Shade." She blinked. How did you get my number?" There was a brief pause. "The buzzboy gave it, said to check on you." Maya smiled faintly. "I'm okay, better than okay, actually." Shade exhaled, relieved. "Good." There was another pause. "Comfortable, warm, you headed home?" he asked. "Yeah, but it's a 2-mile walk." She laughed softly. "Guess I'll take it slow." Shade's voice changed instantly. "Where are you exactly?" "By the old hardware store." "Stay there." "Shade, I'm fine. I know. But let me do this." Before she could respond, the line clicked. She sighed, half annoyed, half amused, but mostly grateful, and then she heard it. A distant rumble, growing louder. She turned toward the street. Shade's Harley rolled up, black chrome glinting beneath the late afternoon sun. He parked beside her, removed his helmet, and for the first time she noticed how gentle his eyes were behind all that leather and steel. "You didn't need to come," she said softly. "I know," Shade replied. "But I wanted to." He held out a spare helmet. "You riding?" She looked at him, heat rising in her cheeks. "You sure?" "You stood up to a monster today." Shade said, "You can handle anything." She smiled, slipping the helmet on. He helped adjust the strap. Gentle, careful, respectful. And the moment his fingers brushed her chin, her breath hitched. Shade noticed, but he didn't comment. Instead, he climbed onto the bike. "Hop on." She slid onto the seat behind him, hands unsure of where to go. "Hold on," Shade said quietly. "To what?" Shade paused, then reached back, guiding her hands around his waist. His voice lowered. "To me." Her heart knocked against her ribs, but she held on. He revved the engine. The world blurred around them as they rode, wind whipping through Maya's hair, the fear she'd carried for years peeling away with every mile. For the first time in her life she felt free. He brought her not home, but to the scenic overlook where Reaper and Switchblade waited. Maya blinked. "I didn't know they'd be here." Shade shrugged with a smile. "Didn't want your walk home to turn into goodbyes." Switchblade whistled as they parked. "Well, damn, Shade, you brought company." Reaper smirked. "Hey, Maya." She laughed. "You guys are ridiculous." "Thank you," Reaper replied. Shade leaned against his Harley. "You eaten today?" Maya blinked. "Is coffee a meal?" All three bikers stared at her. Shade shook his head. "Let's fix that." Reaper pulled out a small cooler from his bike. "We got sandwiches." Switchblade lifted a bag of chips and snacks. Maya smiled, overwhelmed by how these strangers, these bikers she'd met only hours ago, felt safer than people she'd known for years. They sat on the grass overlooking the valley, the sky melting into orange and purple. The forest hummed softly below. The wind carried the scent of pine. For a moment, everything felt still, peaceful, unreal. "You know," Maya said quietly, "I never thought a day like this could happen." Reaper raised a brow. "A day where you eat stale biker sandwiches on a cliff." She laughed. "No. A day where someone finally stood up for me." Shade looked at her gently. "You stood up for yourself. We just amplified it." Maya shook her head, eyes glistening. "No, I owe you, all of you." Shade's voice softened. "Then repay us by living the life you were always meant to live." She exhaled sharply. Reaper nodded. "He means don't ever let someone treat you like that again." Switchblade grinned. "Or we'll come back and deal with it." Shade shot him a look. "We're not threatening people. We're promising protection." Switchblade corrected. Shade sighed. "Same thing." Maya giggled. Then the wind shifted, carrying the faint rumble of distant sirens from the direction of town. Maya turned. Is that? Shade nodded. Final phase. They're shutting the whole place down. Her shoulders sagged with relief, so deep it nearly toppled her. And the sheriff? She asked. Shade smirked. Let's just say he's not sheriff anymore. Reaper added, his uncle dragged half the county into corruption. State didn't play about that. Maya covered her mouth. So, it's over. Shade nodded, completely. She looked out over the valley, sunlight spilling across her face. Feels like a new chapter. Shade watched her, a hint of admiration in his gaze. It is. Then Maya spoke softly. You think I'll be okay? Shade didn't hesitate. You already are. Reaper tossed a pebble into the valley. Plus you got us now. Switchblade nodded. We don't drop people. Maya smiled. Small, warm, real. For the first time she believed it. The world felt wide again, open, possible. The wind lifted her hair, the sun dipped lower, and the three bikers, once strangers, sat around her like the beginnings of a new family. Shade stood up first. Come on, let's take you home. She rose with him, feeling stronger than she had in years. Before they rode out, she looked at Shade. You know. Most people wouldn't have stopped today. Shade shrugged. Most people aren't us. And most people don't risk anything for strangers. He met her eyes. You weren't a stranger. Her breath caught. Oh, Shade smiled. You were someone who needed help. That's all it takes. She swallowed hard. Thank you. Shade put on his helmet. Maya, this isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning. Her eyes filled with hope. Then she climbed onto the Harley behind him again. Shade revved the engine. Reaper and Switchblade pulled up beside them. The sun set behind the pines as they rode, 4 silhouettes cutting through golden light. One healed, 3 watching over her, and the road unfolding into a future she finally believed in. And as the wind carried them forward, justice, dignity, and freedom followed close behind. Subscribe to Aria's Stories.